Welcome to the Lambton College International Graduate Services and Support Center, your dedicated resource for navigating life after graduation. We know the journey can be complex, from understanding immigration processes to making career decisions and expanding your professional network. That's why we're here, to simplify these challenges and support your transition into Canadian life. At the International Graduate Services and Support Center, our mission extends beyond your academic achievements. We are here to facilitate your successful integration into the Canadian workforce and society. From career counseling to workshops on Canadian workplace culture and immigration support, our services are tailored to meet the unique needs of international graduates. We're committed to empowering you with the tools and knowledge necessary for success. Embrace the opportunity to connect with fellow graduates and professionals through our networking events and stay informed with our comprehensive webinars covering a range of topics crucial for your postgraduate success. Remember, the path to achieving your aspirations is a journey we undertake together. Ready to take the next step? Visit our website and join our supportive community. Remember to follow us on Instagram and on LinkedIn for upcoming immigration webinars, networking events, and much more. Together, let's make your postgraduate journey a success.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Cristina Giguren and I'm the coordinator of International Graduate Services and Support Center. I want to remind you that we are recording this webinar so that you can watch it again on our YouTube channel. Also, you're going to get a recording shortly. Also want to invite you to follow us on our social media accounts. This is where we're going to post our upcoming events and future surprises for you. For instance, next week, we're going to have a very interesting webinar on immigration that I recommend you to register as well and participate. That's going to happen next Thursday at 11 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. As you know, the center is dedicated to assisting you, our international graduates, as you seek employment and settle into Canadian life following graduation. International graduates from all four campuses, Mississauga, Toronto, Sarnia, and Ottawa, have access to immigration, career advice, and networking events. There are countless reasons why you can take pride in being a Lambton graduate, as I'm also proud of working here. We've been ranked as one of Canada's top research colleges, and we're here to support you all the way, even after graduation. And this is what I love about this center. We are committed to support you in your post-graduation journey. Part of this commitment, we're hosting these webinars. So I want to let you know that yesterday I met with Prometric. So Prometric are the ones in charge of creating the CELPIP test. And we were talking about the advantages of CELPIP. You know, that's today's topic. So they told me a couple of advantages that I want to share with you so you can think if this is the right test for you. For instance, you have multiple choice. You could get 4 possible answers. 2 of them will be pretty obvious that are not correct, that are incorrect question answers, but you will get to choose between 2 pretty much. So even if you don't have, you're not sure, you can still guess. So that's an advantage. I believe that for IELTS, you actually need to type the questions, and you need to be careful to not make many mistakes there. Also, you will have the spelling check for the writing part. That's another advantage. You will get the results within 2 to 4 business days. And most importantly, you will be listening to North American accent. So that's very valuable. I had a chance to live in the UK, in England, and Scotland. And when I moved from England to Scotland, honestly, I didn't understand a word they were saying. It was so difficult to understand. So if we're used to this environment, we're living in Canada, we're used to these the Canadian or North American pronunciation, it kind of makes sense for us to take the CELPIP. Before we get started, just some housekeeping. Remember to keep your questions in the Q&A so we won't miss them. And we were going to leave the chat for interacting. So today we have an amazing teacher with us. I will present him. His name is Mike. He's the founder and teacher at expressprep.ca, helping immigrants become permanent residents by unlocking an amazing score on their CELPIP tests. But what is truly fascinating about Mike, you will meet him now, is that he's just like us. He's an immigrant. He wasn't born in an English-speaking country, and yet he was able to get the language proficiency we desire and to become fluent in English. So you will get to know him right now. So I believe I will pass it to you, Mike. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks to our graduates for joining.
What is up, everyone? Thank you so much, Christina, once again for inviting me. Thank you so much for Lambton College as well. First things first, guys. Would you guys just tell me in the comments, yes, if you guys can see me very well and you can listen to me very well? I just want to make sure everybody has a good quality here. Awesome. I see you, Claudia. I see you, Marilyn Vinoth. Perfect. Christina Druvi. Let's go. So, guys, before I even start, one thing that Christina said that is very cool is that CELPIP is, of course, multiple choice. So always easier for you to get a better answer instead of PT or IELTS. CELPIP is only American English, only listening, which makes it easier, of course. You don't have accents. And there's another thing that CELPIP is super, super, super cool, which is the fact that when the test was created, it was created in Canada for Canadian immigration. So it's very interesting because I know you guys, I know lots of you. I interact with students every day of my life and international graduates because they are doing CELPIP for PGWP or for PR. And they always ask me this question, like, which test should I go for? I tried IELTS, I tried PTE. Should I try CELPIP? And the question is so simple. You have 3 tests. One of them was created for Canada and the other 2 weren't. So that's the basic premise. But that's not the topic of today's lesson. On today's lesson, my goal with you guys is to hopefully share some very important technique that will help you guys really understand how to solve the CELPIP test. So very, very quickly, guys, one thing I always like to ask in the beginning, again, interact with me because that really helps me understand if you guys are understanding the lesson. Just go again, yes or no in the comments. If you've ever done the test or you've never done CELPIP before, just so I have an idea of who is here and if you guys have done it before. So I mostly knows that totally okay. I'll give you an understanding even if you've never done it, okay? And hopefully I'll convince you guys to do CELPIP for your PR. I believe it's going to be the best, right? So first of all, guys, if you don't know who I am or you've never heard of me, my name is Mike, but people, of course, know me as Teacher Mike, as it is way more common. And I have been doing this for over 8 years now. We had over 4,000 students around the world, over 100 different countries of students that study with us for their proficiency test. I'm the founder of expressprep.ca. We're the #1 resource for immigrants for CELPIP specifically. I've helped professionals from amazing companies. I've helped many amazing people. And it brought me to where I am today, which is being an expert in the CELPIP test for immigrants just like you. And before I actually go into the topic of the lesson, I want to answer 3 very quick questions, right? Because I know Christina told me that most of you guys who are here today are either working or you are in your post-graduation work permit already, or you're maybe just very close to getting that permit. So most of you guys already finished your college, right? If not all of you. So the question becomes, do you have enough time to study? Because when we finish college, it's so fun because I was in college as well and I arrived in Canada. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm really busy in college. And then we finish college, you continue as busy, if not more. So that's totally normal. The question is, do you have time? If you guys are able to be here with me today, if you can watch this lesson for about 1 hour, which is the time we're going to be together, you'll have time. You just have to know how to direct your time correctly and effectively. And this is going to be the most important topic of today with you guys. I want to show you that differently than IELTS and PTE, with CELPIP, we can learn some strategies that will help us save time when we are studying and practicing. All right. The second question, is my English good enough? And in as long as you've finished college, you guys passed your college, which is important, you guys are watching this lesson and you can understand it, your English is good enough, right? It's not only about your English, it's about how you do your test. I'm from Brazil. As Christina was saying, I'm from a third world country. In my country, less than 5% of people actually speak English. So when I came to Canada, I came with a lower level of English than I have now. I became fluent. I actually got my CELPIP score. I'll show you my score later. I'm curious to see if you guys know how much I got. And the fact that I got such a good score is not because my English was good, because of course it is good, but it's because of knowing how to do the test, right? So of course your English, guys, is good. You just have to know how to do it. And then lastly, when's the best time to do CELPIP? When should you do it, right? And now I want to give you guys some hope. If you guys are already in Canada now and you guys are graduates, you guys are in a great position, right? You guys don't need to, most of you already have your PGWP, so that's great. If you don't have it yet, you may have to do CELPIP for your PGWP, right? Because now is a requirement. If you need that, of course, you should try to get more than the minimum score. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the most important thing I want to tell you guys is have your CELPIP is going to be valid for 2 years. So have your CELPIP now, either in the beginning of your journey or in the middle of your journey in your work permit. Do not wait for the last 3 months, because I see this happening, right? Do not wait for the last 2 months of your work permit. Make sure you do it in the beginning, because you're going to be ready for when the opportunities to immigrate arrive and are possible to you. Right now, I know scores are high, kind of scary, but don't worry, guys. Immigration is just like this. I've been in Canada for 8 years. I've seen immigration become harder and easier. So as long as you have your CELPIP done now, you're going to be ready for the next steps. That's something that I really want to make sure you guys can go for. So guys, quick question for you. Do you guys want to know how I did it and how many of my students are doing it to get a CLB 12? That's my score here on CELPIP. I was able to score maximum score on every single part. So just tell me a big yes in the comments, just so I know if you guys would like to know how I got the score without being born in Canada. So I wasn't born in Canada. I wasn't raised bilingual, right? I came to Canada. I was learning English as an adult. So how did we do that? Awesome. Beautiful. Lots of yeses. Let's get into this, guys. So guys, 3 things. The express method, which is the method that I've developed over the years, and that I teach my students, and I'm going to teach you today. It's based on 3 pillars. It's context, skill, and framework. So very quickly for you guys to understand, how did this start? So when I started my journey as a proficiency expert, I actually started on IELTS. I had lots of successful students on IELTS. I had, of course, gotten my score on IELTS, which was very, very high. And I had one student. She told me, Mike, I don't want to do IELTS. I've heard about this test, CELPIP. This was 8 years ago. This was in 2016. CELPIP was not popular. Like nobody ever heard of CELPIP back then. And I almost told her, no, let's do IELTS. It's so much easier. We already know it, right? And then she's like, no, I want to try CELPIP. So there wasn't a website to go and practice tests like you have now. Like I had to go to the Toronto library. For those of you guys who are in Toronto, I went in the Toronto library. I believe it's the 3rd floor where they have the language books. And I asked them, do you guys have anything on CELPIP? And they were like, oh yeah, we have those 2 books here with explanations on the tests and examples. And I was like, great, give me the books. So I took the books, I studied them very thoroughly. And what I found was very important. Differently than IELTS and PTE, every single CELPIP test is very similar to one another. IELTS and PTE, they change a lot. You don't really know what to expect. But CELPIP, every single part of CELPIP that you do, they are just like any other CELPIP test. The only difference is that they change some things. They change the questions. But if you understand those 3 pillars before, you will be 90% of the way done to get your score. And that's how I developed the technique. I was like, okay, let's just look at all of these different tests. Let me see what they have in common and how can we break down a good score in small 3 steps, right? So we are going to do that. And my goal for today is to show you those low effort strategies that are going to have a big impact on your score. Okay. Now, guys, we do not have time to go through every single part of the test. I will show you the technique focused on the speaking because it's one of the parts where I get most questions about. But what I want you to understand is that this technique will work for the speaking, for the writing, for the reading and for the listening. It's just different ways of using the same technique, but the principle, the idea behind the technique is the same. So before I jump into the technique, let me just talk about 3 mistakes you guys make and 3 things you have to do to get your score. Number 1 mistake. Oh, Mike, you just told me the English is easy. You just told me CELPIP is easy. I just need the minimum. I don't want to study. So the danger here is that if you just go for a minimum, 5 for PGWP or 7 for PR, that's the minimum for a PR, you may never get your PR because just the minimum now is not enough. You want to go for as high as you can. The magic number is 9 on CELPIP. It's called CLB. For those of you guys who don't know, the magic number on CELPIP is 9. You can get a 10. 10 is the maximum. It's amazing to get a 10. If you get 11 or 12, you don't need to. But 10 is the maximum for immigration. But 9 is a magic number because 9 gives you extra points on PR and it opens more doors. When you get 5 or 7, you are more limited to what types of programs or immigration that you can do. So that's number 1 thing. And now, guys, if you look at official CELPIP statistics and you look at real native speakers who do the test, only about 2 out of every 10, so 20%, it's actually 15% of them get 9 or more. So 85% of every native speaker of English gets 8 or less. What do we mean native? People that are not from Canada. So if you are from England, UK, Australia, you still have to do CELPIP, right? Nigeria, I have lots of students from Nigeria. India, lots of students from India who spoke English their whole lives. Even though they know English, they have good English, they go and they don't get 9. Why is that? Because you have to know how to do the test. That's what we're going to work on today. Second thing, the test is easy, no need to study. So same topic, you have to study the test, all right? And third thing, guys, scripts. I know that it's very tempting to use scripts or ready-made answers, especially for speaking and writing. Very tempting, I know. But when I went through the CELPIP official certification, you go through their special training to become a CELPIP certified specialist, and they give a lot of emphasis to the fact that if you use a ready-made script, you are going to lower your score. Examiners know when you are faking it. So you cannot use a ready-made script. What you have to use is a framework, which is what I'm going to teach you guys today on how to do. So let's talk about the 3 things you have to do to get your score, and then we're going to get into technique right away, and I'm going to open for questions later on. So first of all, you guys need to practice in a controlled environment. Why do I practice in a controlled environment? Guys, what is a controlled environment? It can be a book that you have tests to do. It can be a website, such as the CELPIP website. Very good website. I recommend you guys use their tests over there. So you get 2 free tests on their website, and then the rest are paid, but very worth the money. And of course, my students as well get mock tests in our simulator, which we give all of our students. So it doesn't matter what you do, you have to practice at home in a very similar way of the real test. So that's number 1, because that's going to lower your nervosism, which is a common thing when you're doing CELPIP. The second thing, you don't study every single thing. That's the most important part here, guys. You study what really matters. It makes no sense for you guys to try to study every single part of grammar, right? So should you learn how to do prepositional phrases? Should you learn 100 different phrasal verbs? Should you learn how to create complex sentences using the right conjunctions? Do you see how confusing it is? You don't need that, because CELPIP doesn't need all of that crazy, fancy schmuck. You know, CELPIP is looking for the most natural English, which is great news. It means that as long as we understand what each question wants from us, that's how we can get a good score. And that's where we get into our technique, which is the express method. The express method is what's going to help you guys understand what each question wants before you even open the test. And that's the trick. And that's what I want to teach you guys right now. All right. So let's get into this, guys. First of all, I know a lot of you guys have never done the test, so let me break this down to you in a very simple way. So when we are talking about CELPIP, you have speaking, writing, reading, and listening. So each part has subparts, right? So you have 8 parts in speaking. They're very simple, very quick. You have 2 parts in writing, you have 4 parts in reading, and you have 6 parts in listening. So each part has their own goal. So what you have to understand is that when examiners create the tests, they have specific things that they want to see. And that's the trick. If I know what examiners really want, then I can get a good score. And let's focus on the speaking here, because that's what I'm going to focus on today to give you that idea. So if we have 8 speaking parts, right? And then we have speaking 1, speaking 2, speaking 3, etc. So for example, guys, let me give you speaking 1 as an example. Speaking 1 will always ask you to give advice. Mike, is it always an advice? Yes. Speaking 1 is 100% of the times to give advice. So that's beautiful. Because if I know before I do any CELPIP test that speaking 1 is going to be advice, speaking 2 is going to be talking about the past, speaking 3 is going to be present continuous, speaking 4 is going to be future, 5 is going to be comparisons, blah, blah, blah. So there's one for each. If I know what I need to do before, then I'm ready. Then I'll get an awesome score. And I'll show you this, guys, in real time for you today. So let's talk about context. What is context, okay? So context is all about what I need to read. There are many questions on CELPIP, not only speaking, but in reading, writing, and listening, that I don't need to read everything. I can skip some things. I can skip some other things. Some other things I have to pay attention to. And that's the trick. So I'll give you an example on the speaking part. Look at the size of this speaking, okay? I want to show you the wrong way first. So look at the wrong way of doing speaking. So for those of you guys who have never done the CELPIP test, this would be the complete wrong way of doing it. This is question 5 of speaking, where you have to make a choice and compare. So look at the wrong way. This is completely wrong. You never do this, okay? Reading the whole thing. Look at this. Look at how much time you're going to waste. Your boss has asked you to buy new cell phones for some staff in your company. You found 2 suitable options. Using the pictures and information below, choose the option that you prefer. In the next section, you will need to persuade your boss that your choice is the better choice. If you do not choose an option, the computer will choose one for you. You do not need to speak for this part. And then you're like, okay, so now I have to choose one. And then you start comparing. Do I want the blue fly? Do I want this, or this? Do I want this one? Do I want this, or this? And that's what you should never do. So I'm going to give you guys the trick for part 5, and then I'm also going to give you guys the trick for part 1 later. So the trick for part 5 is this. Look at this beautiful thing. Here's what you are going to do. Here's the right way of reading this question. As soon as you finish the first line, you don't need to read anything else, basically. Because as soon as you read this, you found 2 suitable options. This is always the same. Every CELPIP test says the same thing here. The only thing that matters that I really need to know here is who is asking me the question. In this case, is my boss. And I need to know what is the thing that he's asking me about. In this case, it's about cell phones for my company. And now I don't need to read anything else. And by the way, I don't even need to read this, because let me ask you something, guys. Very important. Interact with me in the comments. Which phone do you think is easier to select here? To make your choice, you're going to select for your company. Do you think the right one is the easier one, the blue fly? Or do you think the left one is easier, the dark fruit? Which one is the easiest for you? Left, right, left, right. Do you see how you guys are not agreeing in the comments? Some are saying left, some are saying right. It's because there is no easier one. It makes no difference. Look at this. One is talking about price, some features, GPS, camera. It makes no difference. So my students learn that they never need to read the whole thing. Never. They never need to read both of these sides here. because you're just going to have to select one. So what my students learn is this. Every time you go to question 5, you're going to read the first line. You're going to learn who and what. That's it. And then you're going to select one right away. Ignore the other. And then you're going to have extra time to read only what you already selected. This one doesn't exist for you. So tell me yes if you guys see the difference already between not having technique and already having technique. So if you don't have technique, you waste too much time because you're going to go, oh, your boss, okay, and then 2 hours, blah, 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 and then you make a decision here. But if you have technique, you just read the first line, you skip the rest, and you select one very quickly. So we already saved time here, okay? But we need more things to get a good score. So context, I want to make sure you guys understand. The context part is understanding what to read. I show you on part 5 here. Now, what about the skill? What is the skill part? Skill is all about the examiner. So think about this, guys. Someone's job is to create the test. So someone is paid to go there, sit on the chair, and create the test. When they create the test, they have some things that they want you to do, but they don't tell you what those things are. You have to read the question and understand what those things are, right? So if you never practiced and you just open the question and you're like, okay, let me try to understand what they want me to do. So guys, based on the name of the question here, what do you think the examiners want you to do? Tell me in the comments. What would be one of the most important things that you have to do here to get a good score? What are examiners looking for? Tell me in the comments what you think. So best option, persuade, connectors. What else? What do you guys think? So of course, the name of the task is compare and persuade. So I have to compare and persuade, obviously. But the question becomes, how do I do it? And that's what examiners are looking for. So for this question, for example, examiners are looking for comparison expressions. How do you compare? You have to use more than, less than, better than, bigger than, worse than, right? And you have to explain those comparisons. So if I just say, hey, I think we need this phone because this phone is bigger. All right, but why is having a bigger phone better for our company? That's what examiners are looking for. They are not looking just for the comparison. They are looking for the comparison and the reason why that is good. So that specific information I just gave you guys is incredibly important because now you know that if you are doing task 5 of CELPIP, you need to use grammar that compare. So you have to use better than, worse than, more than, less than, bigger, smaller, more interesting, less interesting. You need to use comparison and you need to use reasons, or you can say arguments for those comparisons. Now, remember I told you guys that every CELPIP test is the same? So that's true. Every question 5 will be the same, but they would just change. Sometimes it's a phone, sometimes it's not a phone, sometimes it's a computer, sometimes it's a car, but you will always have to compare. So examiners are looking for that keyword. They want to see you use the comparison. But that is, again, only for question 5. There is a specific skill for part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of speaking. There is 1 and 2 of writing, 1, 2, 3, 4 of reading, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of listening. Again, because today's time is a little bit short, I'll give you most that I can based on the speaking, but Christina already told me, if you guys like this lesson, you guys can tell her, and I may come back another day, okay? But let's focus on what we can do in our short time together. So just tell me yes in the comments if you understand this. The skill is about the examiners, is about understanding what I need to do in each question. And the skill is something I know before. I don't need to read the question to know, right? So just like I told you guys, what is the right way of doing this? So first of all, I already know who and what, because that's my context. Who and what? I don't need to read the rest because I already learned that I don't need to read the rest. And I select one very, very quickly. I made my selection. Now I saved a lot of time. Now I don't need to read the name of the question to know what examiners want here. They are looking for comparisons in terms of grammar, and they are looking for good arguments for my comparisons. If I can do those two things, I can get a high score, right? So context, what I need to read. Skill, what I need to say. That's a good way of putting this, all right? Now, if I know the context and if I know the skill, my last step is what I call the framework. Because here's the problem that most of you guys face. When you start any speaking or writing, or even reading and listening, you oftentimes you freeze. You go and you open the test and you start reading, and you're like, I don't know how to start. I don't know what to do. The framework is the best part of our 3 steps here: context, skill, and framework. The framework is the step-by-step, is the how to. How to. So when I say how to, it's how to start. What's the first thing I say? And remember, that is very important. It is not a script. It is not a template. If you use a script or a template, I'm telling you right now, you will get a lower mark, okay? You need to use a framework because examiners will know that you didn't memorize an answer, but you created an answer. So the thing that the framework does is that it helps you create the answer quickly so that you don't go like, during the test, which is, again, a big problem, right? So let's talk about the wrong way. So this is a new question here, speaking task part 1, all right? So the name of the task is giving advice, right? So what is the wrong way of doing this, guys? This is the wrong way. Your friend wants to rent a movie tonight. Give your friend advice about which movie to rent and explain why it is a good movie. Oh my God. So I have to give advice. Okay. How do I start giving advice? Hi, I think you should rent this movie. Horrible. Okay. Lack of preparation. What is the right way of doing this with the Express method? First of all, context. What is my context? Your friend, movie, and advice which movie. That's the quick thing. What is the context in part number 1? I need to identify who is asking me the question, and I need to identify what is the advice I need to give. So in the first line, I will always be able to find who and what. Always, 100% times, okay? So it's always going to be there. Who is asking you, and what is the advice that they're asking for? What's my second thing, guys? Guys, what is the examiner looking for? So context is skill. What is my skill here? My skill is giving advice, of course, but let's be more specific. What are examiners looking for? They are looking for advice structures or advice expressions. Do you guys know? Can you guys put in the comments for me? Let's see if you guys are paying attention. What are some advice expressions or advice structures that are good to use here? What do you guys think? Put in the comments for me. Let's see your ideas. Think about an advice structure or an advice expression. What is something that you can use to show the examiner that you know how to give advice? How about ing? That's okay. How about doing this? That's good. I suggest, that's good. I recommend, that's good. This will help. And by the way, not help him, this will help you, right? And that's important. In my opinion, that's not advice. You should, that's advice. I recommend, that's advice. Very good. So examiners are looking for these words, all right? So if I know the context, who and what advice, if I know the advice I want to give, what's my next step? Now I need to know how to give the advice. And that brings us to our framework. Look at this, guys. This is so beautiful because this is not a script. This is a framework. It's a step-by-step, but it's not a script. Hey, name. I always start with the name. I pay attention if the person is male or female. In this case, there is no gender. It's not saying. So I can just say, hey, John, hey, Sarah. I can choose any names. But sometimes the test will test you on this. They are going to say, your friend needs help to watch a movie. She, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, okay, she, woman, I'll use female name. Now, the next step, after I say the introduction, hey, name, I'll say, okay, so I repeat the problem. So I'll say, so you want some help renting a movie tonight? Awesome. You repeat the problem for the examiner, right? There are many ways in which you can repeat the problem. You say, I hear that you have this problem. So I hear you want to rent a movie tonight. Oh, I've heard you want to rent a movie tonight. Or, oh, yes, I got that you want to rent a movie tonight. I can say anything here. I just have to repeat the problem. And then I'm going to introduce the advice. How do I introduce the advice? I'll say something like this. So here are some movies you can rent. Very simple, right? So introducing the advice is an important part of your speaking to show the examiner that you didn't memorize the answer. If you say this, hey, John, I see you're having some problems. So here are some ideas. You cannot do this anymore. You could in the past. It worked way back then, but it doesn't work anymore. You have now to say the things that you read here. So you have to say, hey, John, I've heard that you're looking to rent some movies tonight. So here are some that I believe you're going to like. There you go. So this is my introduction. Okay. That is what I call the intro. Now, what is a big mistake you guys make here? You guys have lack of organization in your speaking. Many of you guys go like this. Hey, I've heard you want to rent a movie tonight, so here are some ideas. First of all, I think you should do this. You guys don't breathe. The CELPIP test is looking for natural, normal speaking. So you're going to sound more natural and you're going to pause more. So you're going to say, hey, John, I know you want to rent a movie tonight, so here are some ideas of movies you're going to enjoy. First of all, and then you continue. And then you're going to give one advice, you're going to explain the advice, and you're going to make a connection. So I'll teach you guys this. This is something I only teach my students. I'll teach you here. Christina is a good friend. She told me that I could do this. So I'll teach you something more specific that I generally don't teach for free. I'll teach you guys here. So this part is where most of your score is going to come from. Okay, what is advice 1, advice 2, advice 3? So I recommend all of my students in this framework, right? Remember, there's going to be a framework for each question. We are doing question 1. In this framework, to use 3 pieces of advice. It's always the best number. So I want you guys to help me. Tell me in the comments one movie that you think I should recommend here. But of course, guys, give me famous movies, okay? Don't give me a crazy movie from your country that I wouldn't know, but give me famous movies so that we can use here. Interstellar, that's great. Somebody said Interstellar this morning as well. Okay, I'll use the Interstellar because I love it. I'll use Titanic too. I love it too. Okay, and I'll use Back to the Future too. I love it too. Great. So Interstellar, Titanic, and Back to the Future. Now, what should I do here? Guys, do you see here advice 1, advice 2, advice 3? What is the trick for me to get a good score? I will use the same advice expressions every time I do CELPIP. So if my first advice expression is going to be, I recommend, if my second advice expression is going to be, why don't you? Why don't you? And my third advice expression is going to be, I would also suggest, for example. These advice expressions are the same ones I'm going to use in every single CELPIP test I do. And that's the trick. You cannot do this on IELTS because the questions change too much. You cannot do this on PTE. The questions change too much. But you can do this on CELPIP. Every question 1 of speaking, you can use this framework, and the framework will work 100% of the time. So if you practice enough, you're going to sound way more natural because you're going to use the word recommend every time. You're going to use the word, the expression, why don't you, every time. And you're going to use the word or the expression, I'd also suggest, every time. And because you're going to use them every single time, they're going to be easy to speak. And you're not going to go like this because you're not thinking. You are just speaking quickly, right? So let me show you how this would go, right? So, hey, John, I've heard you're looking for a movie to rent tonight. So here are some that I think you're going to love, right? First of all, I recommend that you try Interstellar, okay? I'm going to explain now why Interstellar is a good idea. So let's just explain why it's a good movie. It's a great movie because it's based on the idea that we need to leave planet Earth and live in space. So it's a very scientific movie. Now, I can end my speaking here and I can go to my second advice. And that's great. But I can make something that I teach my students. It's a beautiful technique that we've developed to increase our scores a lot more. So, one of the things that examiners are looking for here, guys, is that you say things that look and sound very realistic. So examiners don't want you to give an advice that is very generic. So what is a generic advice? Like, oh, you should watch Interstellar. It is a very good movie. I think you're gonna love it. Like that's very generic. How can I make it more realistic? I explain the movie. I'll talk about what the movie is about. But there's one extra step that I teach all of my students to do here in this first part, which is to make a connection. What is the connection? The connection is something you make to show that you actually know the person. That person is your friend. So if they are your friend, you'll probably know them. So the trick is this. You are going to say something by saying, I know that you, blah, blah, blah. So I'll show you right now. So advice number one, I recommend you check Interstellar. It's a great scientific movie. It's about living outside of the planet Earth because the Earth is going to be out of food. And look, I know that you love Matthew McConaughey because you're a big fan of his work at The Wolf of Wall Street. Well, guess what? He is the main star on this movie. There you go. So notice, guys, and tell me yes if it makes sense. Notice how you are not going to use crazy grammar. It's not the grammar or the vocabulary that is giving you advice, is giving you the score. It's the realistic. You are being realistic. You are saying something that the examiners are going to think, oh, wow, it looks like they're talking to a real person. And that's where your score shoots up to the sky. All right. Now look at the second advice. Let's do Titanic. Second, why don't you try Titanic? Look, I know it is a very classic movie. You may have even already watched it, but it's always a good rewatch. It's one of the best ways to not feel disappointed by watching a bad movie. Titanic is like a certain bet. All right, so now I have my first advice. I explain it. I made the connection. My second advice, I explain it. And now I'll go to my third advice. I'll explain it again. So my third one would be Back to the Future. Oh, I'd also suggest Back to the Future. It's also a classic and it's also a scientific fiction. I think you're going to love it. One of the actors has passed away, sadly. So it's a great way to remember of his amazing work. And it's an overall nice movie about how things would be if we had access to a time machine. So then you explain the movie again. After I do my introduction and my body, I always want an ending. Okay? So my ending, again, if I say something very generic, very memorized, get a lower score. So if I say, let me know what you think, for example, not bueno. I want to say something more specific to the question. So a good way to end here would be, so let me know if you want to go and try to rent a movie together, right? That's great. You are saying something that is showing to the examiner that you know how to give advice and you know how to connect the person. Does that make sense, guys? So is it clear? Do you guys understand the idea here? Just tell me in the comments. I'll make sure you guys are understanding, right? So if you are able to have context, have skill, and have a framework or a formula, I call it framework or formula, you are going to save time and energy. And you are not going to need a higher score of English, a higher level of English for a high score. You're going to get a high score without that higher level of English. All right, so guys, one thing I love to do is I want to do it in real time for you. All right, so do you guys want me to show you in real time? Just tell me yes in the comments. I will open a real test here. That is one of the tests that we've developed here for our students. And I will do it in front of you guys so you guys can have an idea of how it works. Everybody say yes in the comments if you want to see it. Okay, good. So guys, I'll open a test here. This is a real test, okay, from the test simulator that we give our students. So let's talk about the wrong way of doing it. Wrong way. Your younger sibling is about to start high school and is very nervous about making new friends and fitting in. Oh, poor younger sibling. Give your young sibling advice on how to have a positive experience and make new friends. Boom, time is over. You cannot do this. What is the right way of doing it? Context, skill, and formula. What's my context? Who is asking the advice? What is the problem? What is the advice? Skill, giving advice. I want to use 3 words. I recommend, I suggest, why don't you? Okay. Framework, hey name, repeat the problem, introduce the advice 1, 2, 3, ending. That's the framework. So look at the difference between having technique and not having technique. Okay, so younger sibling, high school, nervous, okay? How to have a positive experience. All right, so first advice, I'm gonna talk about groups, doing like after school groups or clubs. Second thing I'm gonna say, be yourself. And third thing I'm gonna say, practice sports together. There you go. I have my answer ready. And I have 7 seconds to think. Now look at this. Hey, Josh, I know you're having some trouble fitting in high school. So here are some things you can do to help you make new friends. So first of all, I recommend that you find after school clubs. They are usually one of the best ways to meet new people outside of the classroom environment, which is a great way. And they have all these opportunities such as math, chess, and many other options. Look, I know you love chess. I know it can be a little bit nerdy sometimes, but I'm sure there's lots of other people just like you at the chess club. Secondly, I'd also suggest that you take a look at the opportunity of playing some sports. I know, look, playing sports can be challenging and scary, but it's one of the best ways to interact in a teamwork environment with new people that you didn't know before. Lots of great friendships are formed in a team or sports environment. Now, lastly, um, why don't you just try to be yourself? I know you for my whole life. You're my younger sibling. And although you are weird at times, you are an overall nice person. And I'm sure people are going to see that if you just try to be yourself. All right. So I hope this really helps you out on making new friends. And look, let me know if you want some help on finding the after school clubs. I'm sure it can help you out with that. Time's over. How was that for you guys? Give me an idea. Was it good to see the whole framework being applied? Did you guys see how I went introduction, body, closing? I don't have to think about what I'm saying because I prepared it in my mind because I know the frameworks before. And as I told you guys, I am doing speaking here, right? Thank you, Juan. I'm doing speaking here, part 1, but you should learn a technique for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Of course, we didn't have time for this today, but again, if you enjoyed this lesson, you can tell Christina and she can invite me more. So guys, first of all, tell me in the comments, give me a score on today's class. If it was 1 star, it was horrible. Give me 5 stars. If you felt it was a good class for you, if you felt like you learned something today and it was helpful. Okay, beautiful, awesome. All right, so guys, I'm gonna open for questions. All right, you can use the questions part here to ask questions. I'm gonna open for 10 minutes. Before I do, I don't want to sell it to you. You guys don't need to join. There's no pressure. But of course, for those of you who want to become my students on my CELPIP program, Christina told me that you guys would love it. We do have a special case study pricing during this Black Friday. It's gonna be available until the end of November, until November 31st or 30th. I never remember if November is 30 or 31st. But I don't want to sell it to you. I'm not going to talk about pricing or how it works. I'm just going to tell you what it includes, okay? So it has all the course, all the frameworks for speaking and writing, has all the techniques for reading and listening as well. It has my book. It has Score Express, which is an extra bonuses. And it has access to my simulator included in your course. So with all the questions that I showed you today, for example, all of them are included in the course. So if you want more information, again, the idea here is not to sell anything to you. I just want to give you an opportunity. You can go here on this website and you can go into the talk to one of my team members, or even sometimes it's going to be myself answering. And then you can ask any questions. You can talk about pricing. You can talk about the current discount. There's a good discount going on. So make sure you talk to them. Okay. So again, I don't want to sell anything. I want to make sure you guys have the opportunity. But of course, my goal with you guys today was to teach you something. And hopefully that was achieved. All right. Thanks, Juan. I see you guys need more. So you guys talk to Christina and see what she says. So guys, I'm going to be here. Let's do some questions. Please use the Q&A. There's no questions yet. So use the Q&A in your Zoom and ask anything you'd like. I'll be here for the next 10 minutes to just answer anything, unless you guys don't have any questions, of course, right?
Great, we have great comments, and I have shared Mike's information, the center's information, and CELPIP information in the chat, so you can
Beautiful.
check it over there. And as Mike said, please type your questions in the Q&A.
Awesome. Beautiful. Do you guys have no more questions for me? Okay, there you go. Let's go. What about writing? What about reading? Well, that is up to you guys. Of course, we didn't have time to go through the whole test, right? It's something that you guys have to talk to Christina, right? Okay, good question here, Noel. Do we have to add connections on each advice? So very good question, Noel. So every time you are doing speaking, you will have to use connectors every time. Not only in speaking part 1, but you have to use connectors in speaking part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because they are part of a good organization. So you need to organize your speaking very well. So one of the reasons why I teach you the framework is for organization, because one of the problems of a non-native speaker is because when you are thinking about what you say, you make a mess. You disorganize your speaking. You start with one thing, then you change it to another thing because you got nervous. So part of the framework is understanding how to organize your speaking. All right. So let's see. In reading, what is the first thing we have to do? Very good question. So you will focus on the reading in understanding which parts you can read, which parts you can skip, and you understand what is the type of questions that the test is going to ask you. Okay, so I'm going to give you a hint or a tip for you here. So if you go to reading part 4, which is the most difficult for you guys, on reading part 4, the test is trying to see if you can identify people's opinions, right? So the skill, remember context skill framework? The skill is identifying people's opinions. What is the framework? In reading part 4, the framework is looking for names and opinions. If you can read the text, identify names and opinions quickly, you can answer all the questions correctly. So there are many things on reading part 4 that you don't even need to read. As long as you understand names and people's opinions on things, you can get 8 out of 10 questions correct. Right? So that's the key there. Of course, there's more to this. This is not the only thing you need to do, but this is just a good example. Jessica, beautiful question, Jessica. How many practice tests do you recommend before the real test? I always recommend my students to do about 18 or 20. I know it's a big number. I know it's a number that you guys don't want to listen to, but preparation is one of the most important things. And it's the worst thing is when you don't prepare enough, then you don't get your score. And then you think, oh man, like if I just prepared a little bit more, I would have gotten a better score. So it's better to focus on doing more than doing less. So I recommend about 18, 20 tests to practice. You can get 2 free tests on the CELPIP website. So you can start there. All right. Dhruvi, what would be the trick for listening part 6? So for listening, there is not one trick, there's 7. Okay. So as I told you guys, there is a specific technique for each part of the test. So when we are doing listening, we are looking for 7 things. Every time I'm doing listening, I'm looking for 7 things, and they change according to each part. Part number 6 of listening, you are listening to people's opinions. So it's actually very similar to reading 4. You want to identify names and opinions, positive and negative, how they feel about it. And you want to identify quotes that they make that are giving their opinion about certain things. So those are the first 3 steps. The next 4 steps, they are a little bit more general. So you want to identify times and dates. So every time they say, oh, this is brand new, this is old, this is recent, you want to pay attention to that. You want to identify feelings, how they feel about something. Not only their opinion, but their feeling, right? Which is important because CELPIP loves to ask about feelings. You wanna identify so feelings, times and dates. Oh yes, and then you want to identify future questions, which is also very important. And every time you listen to a specific detail that the CELPIP test give you emphasis on, that detail is a question. So for example, on listening, if the CELPIP test says something like this, oh, I'm really looking for a new mouse pad, for a new mouse, but I hate the color black. Do you guys see what I did? I hate the color black. So the person is giving a feeling, I hate, and the person is saying a specific color they hate. I can guarantee you that one of the questions would be, what is true about the man? And then the answer would be, they dislike dark colors. That's perfect self-example, right? Juan, how do you control or measure the pace of speaking? Beautiful question. You control or measure the pace of your speaking by doing it in a controlled environment with a timer. So even if you don't have access to the simulator with the timer that I just showed you today, because the timer is super important, you don't need to. As long as you have a phone, you can time yourself. And then by timing yourself, you can make sure that you are controlling the right pace, right? So the framework is already controlling your pace because, for example, I told you guys, give 3 pieces of advice. Why did I say that? Because 3 is a good number for 90 seconds of speaking. So that's part of the trick. So when I teach you this, I'm doing all the work for you. You don't have to think. I'm just giving you all the right things to do. And that's kind of where we want to go, right? Beautiful. And yes, if you guys want to talk to my team, just go on the link, expressprep.ca/WPP. And it's going to go straight to WhatsApp. It's going to be one of my team members right now because I'm here. But other times of the day, I'm going to be there. Okay, good. Beautiful questions, guys. Any more questions for me before we go? After I finish this lesson, I'm actually going to go live with my students. So today was a very busy day. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this lesson as much as I did. Any more questions before we go? You guys are good?
Somebody
Awesome.
else?
I answered
That's
everything.
it. Yeah, that was wonderful, Mike. Thank you so much. We understood today the importance of know how to take the test. Not only knowing English, of course, is important, but we need to understand what to do in the test. And if we know this in advance, we won't be like, I'm thinking, do I need to read the whole sentence or what do I need to
Let me
know?
answer one last question because it was
Sure,
very good
please.
from Alejandro. Taking notes in a piece of paper, because it ties right into what you said. If you take notes in a piece of paper, you waste too much time and you risk doing what Christina just said, which is you risk going like, So you don't take notes on the piece of paper during the speaking, writing, or reading. You can during the listening test. There's a specific technique for taking notes. But before the listening, any other test, you don't take notes, so you don't waste time. You don't get stuck. You don't go, So the frameworks, they need to be in your mind. All right? I think that's it. Again, time in writing, I'll answer that very quickly, Dhruv, is based on doing the mock test. So you do the mock test with timer. You have 27 minutes for part 1, 26 for part 2. Make sure you do that with the timer at home, and you're going to manage the time. Okay, good. Christina, go for it.
Great. So you answered all the questions. Thank you so much, Mike, once again for sharing your method. Remember, it is context, skills, and framework, and this will help us boosting our CELPIP score. Anyways, we will be hosting a PT core webinar. I believe that's going to happen next month. So we're giving it to you all the options, and then you can decide which one is better for you. We have done IELTS a month ago, so you can go to our YouTube channel and watch that one as well. And we have a couple of CELPIPs as well. So that's going to be it for today. But remember, next week we have an exciting webinar about immigration, OIMP, express entry, what to do if you're if your application has been denied. So join us next week, 11 and 5:30 p.m. Of course, you will need to register. You would have gotten for sure the invitation to your emails, and I will be happy to see you there. And hopefully, Mike, we would love to have you in the future. Thank you so much,
And
Mike.
everyone, thank you so much, Christina, for the invitation. Thank you all, guys, for being great students. And one thing, I want to congratulate Lambton College. This was very good, well done, done very quickly. I don't think of any college that would have done it so quickly as Christina, so that's pretty cool. Congrats, Christina.
Oh, thank you. We
Awesome.
appreciate it, and we're trying to give the best options to our graduates. So once again, Mike, thank you, and to our graduates, and I will see you shortly. So everyone take care. You will get a recording, everyone. Take care.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.